Hi guys, it's been a hot minute because life happens, but I'm back and ready to show you how I made this waterfall console table desk thing for our downstairs where my hubby and I are changing our setup a little bit. I'm big into home DIY projects and lifestyle motivation, so if you like that kind of thing, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss more in the future. This was a really easy piece to make, but I took some shortcuts I shouldn't have, so I hope you learn from my mistakes and feel like this is a project you can tackle. To give myself a large cutting surface, I laid a sheet of foam insulation under my sheets of birch plywood. I set the depth of my circular saw to just slightly more than the depth of the wood, and used my Craig rip cut saw guide to cut 16 inches off both plywood sheets to be saved for another project. Before making my additional cuts, I glued the larger remaining pieces of my plywood together with the good sides facing out. Now, if you've been with me before, you know that I have a bad habit of either making things more complicated than necessary or going the opposite way and taking shortcuts that end up costing me time and/or quality in the long run. Here is where we get to review a few of those mistakes. Shortcut number 1, not using the right tool to spread the glue. Of course, I had several foam brushes and other options for spreading the glue more evenly, but did I feel like running downstairs to get any of those set options? Nope. Shortcut number 2, not using enough glue. To be fair, I totally thought I had enough glue when I started this glue up. However, I did realize my miscalculation early enough to stop what I was doing, wipe off the glue, and sand off any remaining after it dried before beginning again with enough glue. But that would have taken up too much of my time. Joke's on me. We'll get to the additional time this mistake cost me later. Shortcut number 3, using odds and ends for weights instead of clamps. This might be the most embarrassing one because my clamps were in the garage just behind that pile of plywood. Instead of moving the pile, I decided it would be easier to wander around the garage and find heavy-ish items to place on top. I'm sure we're all surprised that this also caused some issues later on. Please hold. After removing the weights, shocker, I had gaps in between my boards. Luckily, they were just at one end, so after a trip to the store for a lot more wood glue, some dowels, and summer drinks, I learned my lesson and got out my clamps and proceeded to glue and clamp up the problem end. Since plywood is a softer material, I placed scrap pieces of wood on either side to avoid dents where the clamps were. After the glue had dried, I could finally cut the double layer of plywood in half. Being careful to match the angles and the wood grains I wanted to run together on the top side of the table, I cut my 45-degree angles on the top and one side of the legs.
A new day is waiting for us, we got lots of fun stuff to do. Let's go to the zoo and feed the monkeys. I can lend them your baseball cap. Let's make the day a bear and our fun. Growing up is just a trap. Don't it seem like a drag? Like putting all of your joy in a big brown bag. I won't listen to any of that jazz.
After sanding all my cuts, I used some of the scrap pieces to test out my drill angle so my joints would be secure. To get the correct angle, I ended up placing each piece into my vice grip for stability and using my speed square to measure the location of each hole and help me match the correct angle I needed to drill in at. To keep from going through the back of the pieces, I taped the drill bit to show where I needed to stop. Shortcut number 4. grab a tape stronger than masking tape. Duck or painter's tape works a lot better. I glued the dowels into the legs first. Once dry, I glued them into the top and secured the joints with right angle clamps. I only have 2 of these clamps, so I could only do one leg at a time. While each one dried, I used scrap pieces of wood to raise the whole piece level and started filling in any imperfections with wood glue and sawdust. Shortcut number 5, not mixing the glue and sawdust together into a paste before using it as wood filler. This is what I normally do and it works and stains really well. This time I just put glue into the needed areas and put sawdust on top. Not the same result, and those spots stood out in the end. Hindsight, am I right? Once both legs were on, I wood filled the gaps between the legs and the top. Unfortunately, I still hadn't learned the last lesson at this point, so do as I say and not as I do. Mix the glue and sawdust together first, and the paste will blend in and take the stain amazingly. Before staining, I sanded the surface moving with the grain and started from a low grit, working my way up to several higher grits. Finally, the fun part. After some samples, I landed with a mix for my stain color, then followed up with 3 coats of polyurethane, sanding with a fine grit sandpaper in between each coat. Check out the description box below for products used and enjoy this glorious montage. Guys, we are so happy with this outcome. It was such an easy project, so I'm hoping that with the shortcuts and lessons I learned, it'll be even easier for you to give it a try and have a great outcome. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss future videos, including fall and seasonal inspiration, as well as a downstairs makeover where you can see how we use and style this table. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.